Welcome, folks, to episode number 144 of the Healthy Habit Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dayan of Healthy Habit Medical Center, and look who's back, folks, representing Host Defense Mushrooms. We are talking with Mr. Richard Cividanes, National Science Educator at Host Defense. With over 25 years involvement with the natural products industry, Richard's experience includes working as a staff member in health food stores and natural food co-ops in New York and Washington State. Richard is part of the family who founded Topical BioMedics and developed the award-winning homeopathic topical brand Topricin. That's Topricin, Topricin. He was their brand manager and educator for 15 years, that's 15 years, where he regularly traveled the country educating thousands of retail staff and medical professionals on the benefits of homeopathic Topricin. Richard, thanks for coming on, my friend. Welcome back.
Thank you, Doctor. Nice to see you. Happy summertime.
Happy summer, Richard. It's always a pleasure you coming on because you just free flow, no problem talking about mushrooms. It's extremely easy for you. People, our listeners, have commented and complimented our Host Defense guests, so we appreciate you and your whole team there, Richard. And we talked a little bit before going on here today. I want to highlight, well, we've been talking allergies with a lot of guests here. That's kind of the topic here the last couple weeks. Antioxidants, superoxide dismutase, SOD. So I thought it makes sense to highlight Chaga mushroom here today. Tell our listeners about Chaga.
Yeah, thanks. It's a wonderful beneficial mushroom species to kick off and consider, especially during like this time of the year. It's a mushroom species that sometimes is misidentified as a mushroom fruit body. You know, all of the chaga that is used, whether it's being harvested out of the natural ecosystems or whether it's being grown under controlled conditions, it is always mushroom mycelium. The mushroom fruit bodies of that specific beneficial species are not what have been used historically to support human health and wellness. So in the wild, when chaga is starting to express out of the tree, the conch or sclerotia, as it's called, is actually aged, dense, hardened mushroom mycelium. And again, just to set that context for your listeners, mycelium is the longest living aspect of the organisms that we refer to as mushrooms. There are what are existing usually out of sight in the underground. Mycelium is very hard to locate and find, but it is the part of the organism that is the longest living aspect. And as chaga is living in the tree, over time, the mycelium begins to express out of the tree, and that's what is then removed and utilized for health purposes. Chaga is one of the beneficial mushroom species that has been found to have some of the highest support of antioxidants of all of the beneficial species. So you mentioned superoxide dismutase, which is an antioxidant that is very important for our body systems and our cellular health. Mushrooms like chaga, like reishi, have an ability to support superoxide dismutase in our systems, which is really an important relevance when you're looking at that support of antioxidant activity. Chaga it's really unique. It has this very a real affinity in our bodies for a very specific tissue type that are what create the barriers in our body. And it's been found to support a balanced immune response within the barrier tissues of our body. So barriers would be like our respiratory system, our digestive system, our skin. These are the barriers that kind of separate the inside of us from everything else outside of us in the world. And chaga has this capability, and it's been found in research to support the balanced immune response within the cells that create those barriers. They're known as epithelial cells, which are what create a high level of the matrix that becomes the barrier itself. So chaga has this unique characteristic where it is extremely supportive of antioxidants. It also plays a really vital role in supporting the barrier tissues of our bodies. So a lot of folks utilize chaga when they want to support their respiratory system or their digestive system, or even individuals who are experiencing skin-related issues. Chaga can be a mushroom that can be very supportive of that. It's been really used for a very, very long time in like Eastern and Northern Europe areas of the world. It's prized from like Eastern European athletes for helping with not only supporting energy, but also helping to support post exercise recovery processes. And a lot of that has been found, again, because of its significant support of antioxidants. And yep, those images that you just pulled up there on the screen, that's
Yeah.
the sclerotia or the conch. So a lot of people do misidentify that as a fruit body, but it is that dense, hardened mycelium. The fruit bodies of this species they're rarely ever seen by humans because they grow up underneath the bark of the tree.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And if my understanding is correct, I believe that this is a species too that will not even begin to express fruit bodies until it recognizes that it's under a significant amount of stress. Like if the tree that it is infected dies, that
Yeah.
would be a moment in time where the species would start to produce fruit bodies in order to release spores into the environment. And so it's those fruit bodies rarely seen by human beings. There are, in my understanding, no published research papers that show the chaga fruit body being used to support health, but it's always that aged, hardened mycelium that you see being expressed there. And
Yeah.
for us, it's a mushroom of concern. You know, this is one that is a very slow growing species in the wild. It obviously, like all these fungal organisms, play a really important role in their ecosystems. And in some parts of the world, it's being removed from the wild at an accelerated rate as
Sure.
people are wild harvesting it for supplements. And that's of concern, you know, especially because a species like this is very easy to propagate and grow under controlled settings like we do at Host Defense. And then that allows us to not have to go and remove this slow growing species from the ecosystems that it naturally is found within.
Unbelievable, my friend. It looks like wood almost. I mean, how hard is this material like that? Is it hard as hard as it
It,
looks there?
it is as hard as it looks. It does, it feels like wood or stone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That color differential you see there between the outside and the inside, that darkened color on the outside is because the Chaga sclerosias contain a high amount of melanin. And as that is expressing out of a tree and it's being hit by sunlight, the melanin is darkening due to the interaction with the light frequencies from the
Right.
sun. And so it like has a suntan there. When you break it open, that more orangey bronze color is what is being, you know, is in the inside protected from that sunlight.
And then you can see here, folks, all the different options through host defense. Some of these have the old label on there, some of them are the new label. But at the end of the day, it's the same classic organic chaga that you're using in your products, non GMO, always organic, correct?
Yep, absolutely. All of the host defense mushrooms are all organic, non-GMO. You know, our Chaga is one we've had this really great opportunity over the last 20 plus years to be involved in research where our mushroom mycelium has been chosen and used by research laboratories. And our Chaga was one that was chosen by a research lab in the United Kingdom a number of years ago, and they did a
Wow.
human intestinal cell line study with human intestinal cells. And what they found was that our chaga mycelium significantly supported the cell membranes and DNA of those cells, the intestinal cells they were looking at. And it did it much, much more significantly than the control that they were using in the research. And that is a published research paper. So that kind of even just shows the power of the the chaga that is being grown in controlled settings, still having that opportunity to support those epithelial cells in their capacity for DNA and cell membrane support.
Well, yeah, and you can see that right here at the bottom of the specific bottle here that we're highlighting. If you're tuning in on Spotify audio only, we're at hostdefense.com, and I've just pulled up the standalone chaga capsules here. And at the bottom of the bottle, you can see antioxidant and DNA support. By the way, we have an entire host defense mushroom section here with its own panel and all their products together here at Healthy Habit Health Foods at 6029 North 7th Street. So if you're interested in this, just go to our host defense mushroom section here in the store. Why does it say DNA support? Highlight that again for us. What's going on there? Why was that chosen to be there? That's obviously important. To explain this a bit more here. DNA support.
It is important, and chaga, through some of that opportunity for its profound ability to support antioxidant activity, also these antioxidants that it is able to support and create the generation of within our bodies can go on to support cell membranes and DNA within the cell nucleus, and it's a vitally important aspect of cellular health.
Yeah.
Chaga it's a really profound immune supporting mushroom, barrier tissue supporting mushroom, and antioxidant supporting mushroom. The immune capacity for it is such that we do find the chaga across a number of our host defense products that are, have that structure function label as immune supporting. So you'll find it in our MycoShield throat sprays. You find it in our elderberry plus syrup, which is coming back out again here in a couple of weeks. You find it in our Mycobotanicals immune powder. It's in the Stamets 7 formula. It's obviously one of the 17 mushrooms in my community, but we find it across a number of those immune supporting formulas. And when it's also one of the 3 mushrooms that you find in our Breathe formula, which is more specific for supporting respiratory health and graceful breathing. So it is definitely a mushroom when you're looking at wanting to help support antioxidant activity, cell membranes, DNA, barrier tissue health, immune responsiveness in barrier tissues. Chaga is a species to think about and consider if that is the kind of area of interest for your health support.
And I remember even talking with Gina Rivers back earlier this year, if not the end of last year. We had a discussion on medicinal mushrooms versus functional mushrooms. So let's clarify that a little bit. Some people might get confused with the psychedelic type medicinal mushrooms. Explain, what is a functional mushroom then?
Yeah, thanks. Some of the wording that we utilize, especially here at Host Defense, being a supplement brand, has to do with some of the guidelines and rules that were set up by the FDA and what's known as the Dietary Supplement Health Enforcement Act, or what we call DSHEA. And so we utilize the terms functional or beneficial when we're communicating about these fungal organisms more so than the term medicinal, because that kind of crosses over a guideline space in the supplement world where we can't have a supplement be a medicine. So in order to kind of keep that space and that boundary separated, we refer to them as beneficial species. Historically, though, when we look at the historical arc of the literature that's been written about these organisms, published papers, that term medicinal is utilized. Now, these are most definitely different. The beneficial species, different than the psychedelic ones.
Right.
None of the organisms that we work with at Host Defense are Schedule 1, classified drugs like some of the compounds that you'll find in psychedelic mushrooms. That landscape is changing also in the background and in that legal framework. But that does not, that's a completely separate category of fungal organisms than the beneficial / medicinal species that we work with and grow at Host Defense.
Got it. And in this particular, let's say the capsule version of chaga, you can see in 2 capsules, you get 1 gram of chaga. And how do you go about formulating that specific amount? Is that what the research says? Is that roughly where the therapeutic benefits start? How do you go about dosing these?
Yeah, and thanks. For the servings of any of the Host Defense mushroom mycelium and fermented substrate combinations, you can safely use one gram is an ongoing day-to-day, enough of a serving to provide an impact. If and when you are wanting to have more significant support, we always suggest you up regulate that serving. You can easily do that with our powders, for instance, like the chaga powder. You can take a half teaspoon of that powder 1 to 3 times a day. At 3 half teaspoons, that is 4.5 grams of material that you're consuming over the day. So 1 gram is like when you're feeling like you just want ongoing support and there's really nothing occurring in your system where you want that additional support. If and when you're really wanting to feel like some more of the power of these species, I certainly suggest you increase the serving, go up to 4.5 grams, stay there for a period of time when you're wanting more significant support. I would say, like, for me, in like this, just my N of 1, my own experience, I shift between 1 and 4 or 5 grams of mushrooms a day. And I do that pretty consistently day in and day out. I mean, I do take days off here and there. But we've got some newer research that's being published that's showing that these long arcs of time of use of beneficial mushroom species at significant quantities, there's no negative impacts being seen, nor is there a normalization in the body. Like the body is still responsive to the mushrooms even after you're consuming them at higher servings for a long period of time. So it's a kind of some interesting research that's being shown in some of the published literature now about the ability to consume these organisms for a long period of time and still have that opportunity for support occurring.
So, Richard, what would be a good combination? You mentioned it's in a variety of formulas here at Host Defense Mushroom, like in the Breathe formula. It's also in the classic, the legendary Stamets 7. And then there is, of course, the standalone powder, Chaga, and the capsules. What would be a good combo with Chaga, let's say, for seasonal allergies, or if someone's having that congestion? By the way, no medical advice here, folks. We're just talking what Richard's observed over the years with various customers or family friends, or things that he's read about. What would be a good combo with Chaga for potentially helping with all that congestion, difficulty breathing, maybe the Breathe formula? Let's hear your thoughts on that.
Really, that's exactly where I was going to go, Doctor. The Breathe formula, it's a simple 3 mushroom formula. It's all in equal parts. It's Chaga, reishi, and then Cordyceps militaris. And that combination, those 3 species together, especially at the serving that they are in the Breathe formula, really significant support for respiratory health. If and when you are needing to, get back to more graceful breathing, that is a formula that has been a game changer for me personally over a very long period of my life. My respiratory system is kind of like my weak link, so if you will, and I use that formula with a lot of regularity. I like to pivot between. I utilize our liquid extract of the Breathe formula when I'm wanting a more immediate engagement. When I'm feeling like I really need to shift things in my respiratory system quickly, I'll go to the liquid extracts. Those just, for me, they tend to assimilate faster into my system. And I usually notice a change within like 10, 12 minutes of a serving. I'm noticing a change in my respiration rate. And there is some significant research on all 3 of those mushroom species that shows that they can support some of the immune cells that are responsible for interacting with our respiratory system in a way that can sometimes create havoc for people's comfort when they're having issues with their breathing. And so that combination of those three species, I find, can go a really long way in helping to support an individual. Now, the Breathe capsules that you just brought up here, the capsules or the powder, I would suggest if the respiratory system, graceful breathing are of interest to you, the capsules and the powder can be used day after day to support that tissue. And then you save the liquid extract for when you're wanting that more immediate assimilation. The liquid extract is a water and alcohol extractions of the mushroom mycelium and the fermented growing substrates of all 3 species. And then there's also water and alcohol extractions of the dried reishi fruit bodies as well.
And I pulled up all 3 options here. Here's the powder, and then we have, as Richard was saying, we have the capsules here, which, of course, certified organic and non-GMO. And then, of course, we have, if you want to ramp it up a little bit here, increase the assimilation and strengthen the dosage there, potentially look at the Breathe extract liquid tincture version. So are all 3 going to have the exact same breakdown of the nutrients? They're all going to have the Chaga, Cordyceps, and reishi?
They are. The only difference is in that extract, we have water and alcohol extractions of the mycelium of all 3 species, and then the dried reishi fruit body extract as well. And in reishi and cordyceps have some published research that shows that they can support our immune cells known as granulocytes in their granulation, which plays a big role in respiratory health and wellness at times. So there's some really interesting published research on the cordyceps and reishi that show that they can kind of support some of that immune cell functioning in a balanced way, along with the chaga and its capacity to support balanced immune functioning in those epithelial cells, which are literally what are creating the barrier in our respiratory system itself. I
Wow.
like to use the breathe extract. I use it not only when I'm having like an acute need, but I use it personally for one of my exercise supplements. Before I go out and run in the mornings, I usually will take 2 to 3 dropperfuls of the breathe extract about a half hour before I get out to do my run. And on days where I'm going on longer runs on the weekends, I'll bring it with me, and I usually use it somewhere in the middle of my run time out on the trails. And I just find that it really helps to support that whole breathing apparatus for me personally. It's been a real game changer since I discovered it many years ago.
Incredible. Amazing. You can go so many different ways here when we have Richard on. But here you go. You got the Chaga Reishi Cordyceps supporting energy for athletic performance with the Cordyceps. There's a lot of good sports medicine and athletic research on Cordyceps. You want to highlight that real quick since we're on a topic?
Yeah, absolutely. And there really is there. It is most certainly our most revitalizing of the beneficial mushrooms. And it is a mushroom species that has been long enjoyed by athletes of all different stripes. It has, some of the things that we see in the published literature on cordyceps, it has been found to support the production of ATP, like that's the energy molecule that our mitochondria produce that help to energize all of our cellular mechanizations. It has been found to support the ability of our body's tissues to absorb more oxygen. So that's one of the ways that it functions within our respiratory system. It does two really unique things. It can help to relax your bronchial tissue. That means that you have the capacity to draw more air into your lungs with each breath. And then it's also been found in research to allow that oxygen to absorb through the membrane in the lungs so it oxygenates the tissue. That's
Wow.
how you get this energetic lift from the species. It doesn't have caffeine or stimulant properties that I'm aware of. Most of that energetic lift comes from its oxygenation of the body's tissues. One of the ways that some of the species of cordyceps have been used traditionally, like some of the species traditionally grow up in high elevations on the Tibetan Plateau and in the Himalayan mountains. And cultures that have lived in that area, high elevations for a long time, have prized cordyceps as a natural substance that they can utilize to support their oxygenation while they're working hard and moving at 12, 13, 15,000 feet above sea level. It is a mushroom species also that has been found to significantly support neurological health, digestive
Wow.
system health. Cordyceps, like a number of these species, play a multifaceted role in our body's organ systems. The research on those three species, Cordyceps, reishi, and chaga, they check off practically every structure function box in the body.
Okay.
And when you look at the three of them side by side, to me, it's a beautiful, simple three species combination that really can have this overlapping support of multiple systems in the body at the same time. Most
Wow.
certainly cordyceps, one of the things it's known for, what most well, is energy and adaptation to stress. Those are the two places where it's the most well known.
Incredible. Thank you, Richard, for that. And so, real
Of
quick,
course.
you mentioned your favorite potentially with the breathe options is that extract, which is in the alcohol liquid tincture. And if someone that's
Mhm.
new to this world of natural medicine and herbs and functional mushrooms and extracts and using tinctures at all in their daily supplement regimen, why is there alcohol in this? It says here alcohol content 30 to 40%. Explain this a little bit, how this has been used classically to produce medicinal products. Explain that. Is this the same as when you go and get beer or liquor or things like that?
Yeah, thanks. So those are ferments different than that. The reason we use alcohol, and that was not used traditionally in
Okay.
extractions of fungal organisms. They were traditionally, it was hot water. But we have learned a lot in the last number of decades in modern science research, and we now know that water does not solubilize all compounds, right? It cannot pull all compounds out of substances that are introduced into water. So when we do water extractions with fungal organisms, whether it's the mycelium or the fruit bodies, the water will extract sugars like polysaccharides, glycoproteins, but water has a really hard time extracting other compound
Oh,
types
okay.
like lipids and sterols and terpenes. And there are a variety of these types of compounds that are found in mycelium and in fruit bodies. And these terpenes, lipids, and sterols have been found pretty consistently in the research to provide this balanced support of the immune response. In a way, you can think of them acting almost like the conductor of the orchestra of our immune response. And so we use a water and alcohol extraction process, so we're able to extract the broadest amount of potentially supportive compounds from these fungal organisms. If we were only doing water, we would only be getting sugars and glycoproteins. We want those, but we also want the terpenes and the sterols and the
Right,
lipids,
right.
and those easily solubilize in alcohol. And so that's why we use the combination.
Perfect. So it gets deeper in extracting all the goodies out of those mushrooms, not just some of those other
Exactly.
with just from the hot water extraction. But then, well, this
Exactly.
alcohol won't have the same negative effect on the liver and things of that. Is it evaporated out after? How does that work? Like if you
It's not
took, let's
evaporated
say someone
out.
took the entire tincture.
Yeah, if you're so in that 1 ounce bottle, 30 to 40% of it is alcohol. So I mean, if you drank enough of those tincture bottles, you would
Got it.
have that alcohol
Good.
experience of
Important
feeling
to highlight. Yeah.
intoxicated. So that's important to know. But again, at the two droppers as a serving, you're getting a minimal amount of alcohol. Now, obviously, that does become an issue for some people. There are, people who practice certain religious processes. There are individuals who are recovering alcoholics who alcohol is a zero sum game. You cannot do it. You will
Right.
not do it. And we understand that kind of separates that individual from being able to utilize the tincture and the extract. But right now in our product line, that's just the way that we do it is the extracts have both the water and the alcohol because we're looking for that broadest spectrum. One of the things you can do if you wanted to, kind of reduce the alcohol amount in the extract yourself is you could boil some hot water, put your 2 dropperfuls of the extract in a glass, and then pour a little bit of that boiling hot water over it. And that would help to off gas some more
Got it.
of that alcohol content. But it is something to be aware of if you're using the extracts with children. And again, if you have a concern for the use of alcohol yourself, you'd want to be aware of that.
And that takes us right to the end of our segment. Perfect timing, Richard. I want to
Oh,
thank you, Amanda, Gina Rivers,
thank
the whole
you.
team there, and Jerry Angelini, of course. Appreciate all you
Yeah.
guys, and I look forward to our next one.
Yeah, me too, doctor. I appreciate you always. Thanks for the time and the opportunity.